Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Friday, February 27th, 2026.
Okay.
And I have to be honest with you, if you have been doom scrolling today, or I guess let's be real, maybe joy scrolling, depending on what your portfolio looks like this morning.
Right. Yeah, definitely depends on the portfolio.
Yeah, but looking through the news feeds, it is, well, overwhelming feels like a pretty massive understatement right now. It really feels like the volume knob on history has just been turned all the way up to 11.
It really does. I mean, we are sitting here in the first quarter of 2026, and the pace of change isn't just fast anymore. It's vertical.
Totally vertical.
I was actually just looking at the sidebar of the source material we're covering today, just sort of scanning the headlines, sitting right next to the main text, and it is just a barrage of future shock.
Oh, for sure.
We've got reports that agentic AI is set to absolutely explode this year. So moving from, tools that just chat with you to tools that actually go out and do things for you.
Right, taking action.
Exactly. We are looking at the rollout of Gemini 3. We have this thing called OpenClaw making waves in the tech sphere, which sounds simultaneously really cool and mildly terrifying.
Honestly, mostly terrifying. But that's just the tech stack, right? You look at the political and economic landscape mentioned in these notes, and we see mentions of Trump's default, discussions about AOC 2028, all these trade wars and tariffs.
It's a lot to process.
It's huge. And again, we're just laying out what's in the source here, not taking any political sides on these events, but it really feels like the entire operating system of the world. The political boundaries, the economic rules, the technological capabilities, it's all just being rewritten in real time.
It really is the definition of this age of abundance that all the futurists predicted, but it's also, an age of absolute chaos.
The chaos is the perfect word for it.
Because we are talking about what they call marketing escape velocity. Companies are scaling faster than ever before because AI is just handling all the growth automatically. We're talking about space travel, mentions of Elon Musk's vision, low Earth orbit economies. It's high tech, it's high speed, and the stakes are just incredibly high.
Which makes today's deep dive so fascinating. And frankly, a little disorienting to me. Because right in the middle of this massive digital whirlwind, surrounded by all these links about liquid computing and quantum jumps and, robot butlers.
Yeah, right next to all of that.
Exactly. Right next to all of that, we have this blog post. It dropped today on the Netizen blog. And it is titled, Money, Mastery, and the Soul. A Warning Across the Ages.
Such a striking title.
Right. And it's written by Paramendra Bhagat, who, if you judge by his resume in the sidebar, he is deeply, deeply embedded in this tech world.
He absolutely is. I mean, he's not some monk living in a cave disconnected from the grid.
Right. He's not typing this on a typewriter in the woods.
No, he's the author of books like The AI Marketing Revolution and Agentic AI. He is a guy who clearly understands the machinery of 2026. He's living right there in the data stream, just like the rest of us.
Exactly. But the post isn't about code. It's not about algorithms or the latest crypto pump or how to optimize your neural link. It is about the human soul.
Which is such a pivot.
A massive pivot. And he argues that despite all this new technology, despite the fact that we have robots and AI agents doing our work, the fundamental human challenge hasn't changed one bit since the Bronze Age.
Yeah.
He frames this impending age of abundance not as some, economic victory lap for humanity, but as a really severe spiritual test.
It's a profound shift in perspective. The real hook here is that while we are all so busy upgrading our external world, our robots, our markets, our networks, upgrading to Gemini 3, we are completely neglecting the internal software.
The internal software, yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And the source argues that the ancient struggle between the soul and mammon, which is, money or wealth, is actually becoming more intense, not less, in this age of AI.
So that is our mission today. We are going to explore this warning. We are going to unpack the connection the author makes between biblical scripture, specifically the Gospels, and Hindu mythology.
It's a really fascinating cross-cultural bridge.
It is. And we're going to try to answer a question that I think everyone listening really needs to ask themselves right now, especially if you're out there chasing that marketing escape velocity. The question is, can you be wealthy in the age of AI and actually be free?
Because it really is the ultimate survival guide for 2026. If you get all the money, if you hit that escape velocity, but you lose your freedom in the process, you haven't really won anything.
You've just built a nicer cage.
Yeah.
So let's start with the diagnosis. The source jumps right in by calling money the silent third party. And it grounds this diagnosis in some very old, very heavy texts.
Yeah, it goes straight to the foundation.
It cites the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 21. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And then Matthew 6.24, you cannot serve God and mammon.
Now, I think whenever we bring up scripture in a context like this, especially on a tech blog, we need to be really precise about the analysis. We aren't doing a sermon here, and neither is the author.
Right, it's more of a diagnostic.
Exactly. It's a diagnostic of the human condition. And the first clarification the author makes is vital, because I think a lot of people just get this entirely wrong. The Gospels of Luke, Mark, and Matthew do not describe money as inherently evil.
Which is such a common misconception. People always quote that line, money is the root of all evil. But that's a misquote to begin with, right?
Correct. The actual text says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, and the source is very careful to parse out that nuance.
It's an important distinction.
It really is. The text implies that wealth itself isn't the sin. The metal coins, the digital numbers on your screen, the crypto tokens, they are completely neutral. The source emphasizes that money is described as powerful. It is described as a master to be resisted, rather than just a tool to be feared.
I really like that distinction because if you think about it, if you fear a tool, you're really just afraid of hurting yourself. You treat it like a sharp knife or a chainsaw. You use it gingerly.
Right, you put on safety goggles.
Yeah. But if you resist a master, that implies a power struggle. You are actively fighting for your sovereignty.
Exactly. It frames the relationship as a struggle for dominance. The source says, and I'm actually going to quote here because the phrasing is just perfect. It says, the issue is not possession. It is possession's grip on the heart.
Possession's grip on the heart.
Yeah, meaning you can possess millions. You can easily be the richest person in the room. But if it doesn't grip your heart, if you are ultimately indifferent to it, you are safe. Conversely, you can possess $10. You can be completely broke. But if that $10 grips your heart, if it rules your decisions and your mood, you are in trouble.
The source actually calls money a test. It says in the teachings of Jesus, money is less a currency and more a diagnostic tool for the soul. It acts like a spiritual MRI, revealing what is actually going on underneath the surface.
And then it moves to the symptoms of this grip. And this is where it gets really practical for you listening today. The source asks us to look around at society. How much human conflict traces back to this one specific root?
It lists them out, and it's a pretty grim list when you look at it all together. Crime driven by greed, which is the obvious one. But then it mentions corruption justified by necessity.
That's the insidious one. That's the one that creeps up on you.
Yeah, the I had to do it excuse.
Exactly. I had no choice. The market forced my hand. Or, if I didn't pay the bribe, the competitor would have. That is money gripping the heart and forcing a compromise of your integrity. It creates this whole narrative where you are the victim of your own bank account.
Right, you convince yourself that your moral compass just has to take a back seat to your survival, even when survival actually just means maintaining a certain luxury lifestyle.
And then it brings up families torn apart over inheritance, debt, status, or lifestyle.
We have all seen that. The reading of the will, where siblings who grew up playing together in the backyard suddenly stop speaking to each other forever over a single percentage point, or the stress of debt just completely breaking a marriage.
The source is highlighting that these aren't just financial problems. They are spiritual fractures caused by money taking the wrong place in our lives.
The marriage analogy in the source is particularly strong, and I want to spend a moment on this. It says money becomes the silent third party in a marriage. It acts as the judge, the competitor, the measuring stick.
Think about the dynamics of that. You are in a relationship with another human being, trying to connect, trying to love, but there is this invisible judge sitting right there at the dinner table with you.
Judging every bite.
Yeah. And when you look at your partner, sometimes you aren't seeing them. You are seeing their earning potential, or you're seeing their spending habits. Can we afford this? Why didn't you earn more this quarter? Why did you spend that on a Tuesday?
It turns the partner into an employee or a liability.
Precisely. Money becomes the actual competitor for affection and attention. I can't spend time with you because I have to make money. And then it becomes the measuring stick of the relationship's success.
Like, we're a good couple because we have a big house.
Right. Or we're a failing couple because we have credit card debt. It depersonalizes the bond. It turns a covenant into a contract.
It really is heartbreaking when you map it out like that. But again, the source pivots to a clarification here that I think is essential for our audience, especially the ambitious ones out there. The founders, the creators, the people actively building these agentic AI tools.
Yeah, we have to clear this up.
It explicitly says, the gospel warning is not anti-work. It is not anti-enterprise. It is not anti-provision.
No, and thank goodness for that. It explicitly states that the scriptures praise diligence. They praise stewardship. They praise generosity and responsible care for the family. So the problem isn't that you are working hard.
Right.
The problem isn't that you are building a business or launching OpenClaw. The problem is the hierarchy.
The hierarchy of values.
Exactly. The source lays out the correct order, and it's very specific. It goes God above money, family above money, health above money, peace above money.
It sounds so simple when you just say it out loud like that. Like, obviously, health is more important than cash. But in the hustle culture of 2026, where everything is moving at marketing escape velocity, it is incredibly hard to maintain.
It's almost impossible if you aren't intentional.
How many times have we put money above health? Pulling all-nighters, eating garbage, skipping the gym for a week straight because we were too busy scaling the business?
Or putting money above peace. Taking on that client you just know is going to be toxic.
Oh man, the toxic client.
You know they're going to ruin your weekends, they're going to stress out your entire team, they're going to keep you up at night. But you take them anyway because the contract is big. That is money taking the throne.
Or money above family.
Ugh.
Missing the kid's soccer game for a Zoom call, checking crypto prices under the table during date night. That is money taking the throne.
And that leads to the key metaphor the source uses, which I absolutely love. It says, money is meant to sit at the accounting desk, not on the throne.
It's all about proper placement.
The accounting desk is important. You need to pay the bills. You need to track the metrics. You need to know what your runway is. You cannot run a life or a business without a competent accountant.
Right, you can't just ignore the math.
But the accounting desk doesn't set the vision for the company. The accountant doesn't decide who you are. The accountant doesn't determine your worth as a human being. It doesn't rule the kingdom. When money moves from the desk to the throne, when the calculator king starts giving the orders, that is when the soul is in serious trouble.
This brings us to the second section of the deep dive, and this is where the warning across the ages really comes into focus. The source takes us from the Gospels of the 1st century all the way over to Hindu cosmology. It introduces this concept of Kali Yuga.
This is a fascinating layer to add to the discussion. It validates the warning across completely different cultures. In Hindu tradition, time is cyclical. It's not a straight line from A to B, it's a wheel. And the Kali Yuga is the current age we are living in right now.
Okay.
It is known as the Age of Decline, the Iron Age, the Age of Quarrel and Hypocrisy. It is considered the time when humanity is spiritually at its lowest point and most materially obsessed.
So if you're listening to this and you feel like the world is just getting noisier and more contentious and more obsessed with stuff every single day, well, you're right on schedule, according to this cosmology.
Exactly. We are deep, deep in the Kali Yuga.
And there's this specific story the source recounts from the Bhagavata Purana. It involves King Parikshit and a figure called Kali Purush.
Right. So Kali Purush is essentially the personification of this age of decay. He represents the force of spiritual entropy, the force that breaks things down and causes rot. In the story, he approaches King Parikshit. Now, the king is a righteous ruler. He's the grandson of the great warrior Arjuna from the Mahabharata.
So he's a good guy.
Very good guy. And Kali knows he cannot just take over the kingdom by force. He needs permission to enter. So he asks the king for a place to live. He asks for specific territory within the kingdom where he is allowed to dwell.
And the king, being a ruler, who has to maintain order but also play by the rules of the universe, grants him 5 specific residences. I want to list these out because the source makes a very big deal about them.
Yeah, the list is crucial.
The 5 residences are gambling, intoxication, prostitution, animal slaughter, and gold.
It is quite a list to put together. You have these visceral, destructive vices: gambling, drinking, violence, exploitation of sex. These are things we usually associate with the underworld or with severe addiction. And then sitting right there at the top of the list is gold.
And the analysis here, well, the source's analysis is that these are not just random vices picked out of a hat. They are grouped together for a very specific reason. They're all systems.
Systems of attachment, addiction, and exploitation. If you look at gambling, it is an addiction to chance and gain. It's the thrill of the maybe. Intoxication is an addiction to escape, to altering your consciousness, because raw reality is just too hard to deal with. Prostitution is the exploitation of intimacy, turning human connection into a cold transaction. Animal slaughter is the exploitation of life for taste.
And then there's gold. The source focuses heavily on gold. It says gold represents more than metal. It represents the human tendency to convert worth into numbers and to worship those numbers.
That is the direct connection to the other vices. Just like gambling hooks you on the thrill of the win, or intoxication hooks you on the feeling of release, gold hooks you on the accumulation of abstract value.
It turns life into math.
It really does. It turns a forest into a lumber yield. It turns a person into a human resource. And when you worship the math, you inevitably lose the humanity.
The source calls this a cross-cultural diagnostic. It compares the Hindu concept of Kali dwelling in gold with the Christian concept of mammon.
And the synthesis between the two is incredibly powerful. The source argues that money or gold is actually the most efficient snare of all the vices Kali inhabits.
Why is it the most efficient, though? Why is it considered more dangerous than, say, severe intoxication?
Because of the disguise. If you are an alcoholic, society generally agrees that is a problem. There are warning labels on the bottles. People stage interventions. If you are a gambling addict and you lose your house, people worry about you. But if you are addicted to money...
Yeah, what happens then?
If you work 90 hours a week to pile up more gold than you or your children can ever possibly spend, society calls you successful. Society puts you on the cover of magazines. We give you awards and ask you to give keynote speeches.
Right. It completely disguises itself as necessity and security. We all need money to eat. We all need a home. So it is incredibly hard to tell exactly when the legitimate need has crossed the line and turned into worship.
It transforms into identity quietly. You start out by working to live, and you end up living to work. You start by wanting to provide a good life for your family, and you end up never actually seeing your family because you are too busy providing. That is Kali entering residence of gold. It creates a closed loop where enough is never actually enough. The finish line just keeps moving further away.
So we have established that this is a trap that has been recognized by wise people for thousands of years across completely different continents and religions. But now, in 2026, we need to know, are we caught in it?
That's the real question.
Because most of us listening would probably say, I'm not greedy, I'm just trying to get by, I'm just trying to build my startup. So the source moves to what it calls the internal audit.
This is the practical application of all this philosophy. The source poses a really fascinating paradox here. It says you can be poor and still be enslaved by money, and you can be wealthy and not be enslaved at all.
That is a crucial point to highlight. We so often associate greed purely with the rich. We think, oh, I'm struggling to pay rent right now, so I obviously can't be greedy.
Yeah.
Or I'm firmly middle class, this mammon stuff doesn't apply to me.
But the source says slavery to money is not measured by balance sheets. It is measured entirely by emotional reaction. It is an internal metric. You can be broke and completely obsessed with money, constantly envious of everyone around you, bitter about your lack, scheming day and night. That is slavery.
Right.
And you can be a billionaire and be entirely gentleless, detached, and peaceful. That is freedom.
So let's go through the diagnostic questions the author provides. These are the if statements in the text. I want everyone listening to you to actually answer these honestly in your own heads right now.
Yep.
Number one, if your peace collapses when someone else has more, you are a slave.
That is the envy test. It is the scenario where you are perfectly happy with your life. You like your car, you like your house, you're content. But then your neighbor buys a better car. Or your colleague gets the promotion you kind of wanted, or you see someone on social media taking a vacation in orbit that you can't afford.
Yeah, that'll do it.
If that external event destroys your internal satisfaction, your peace was never really yours to begin with. It was being held hostage by comparison.
It's like your happiness is entirely relative, not absolute.
Exactly. You are outsourcing your emotional state to your neighbor's driveway.
Okay, number two. If your self-worth inflates when your income rises, you are a slave.
This is the ego trap. And it is so common in our industry, especially with this marketing escape velocity mindset that the author talks about elsewhere. You get a raise, you close a massive deal, the stock price goes up, and suddenly you feel like you are fundamentally a better person. You walk differently, you talk differently, you feel more important than the barista serving your coffee.
Is it bad to feel good about success, though?
No, it's not bad to feel good about achievement. You worked hard, you should feel good. But the source warns that if money can pump you up, it can also deflate you.
Right.
If your worth as a human is tied to the number in the account, what happens when the number inevitably goes down? What happens if you lose the job or the market crashes? If you're only worthy when you are rich, you are spiritually bankrupt. You are tying your very soul to a volatile external metric.
Which leads directly to number three. If your joy evaporates when markets dip, you are a slave.
And in the context of 2026, this is the big one. We have wild crypto volatility right now.
Yeah.
We have AI market shifts where entire legacy industries are being disrupted literally overnight.
Yeah, the headlines in the sidebar mention Trump's default, which implies some massive economic instability happening in the background.
Markets are going to dip. They are going to crash. It's what they do. If your joy is perfectly correlated to the ticker tape, you are on an emotional roller coaster that you cannot control. You have handed the keys to your happiness over to an algorithm.
So if we take this audit and we fail these tests, if we realize, uh-oh, that's me, I get jealous. I get terrified when the market drops. I feel better than people when I make a big sale. What is the cure? The source offers a solution that it calls the power of celebration.
This is honestly my favorite part of the text because it is so incredibly counterintuitive. It suggests adopting a practice of quiet dignity. When you see someone else succeed, when they buy the bigger house, get the newer car, get the promotion you wanted, you say, and you actually mean it, I am happy for you.
Just that. If you love your car, I am happy for you. If you love your new house, I am happy for you.
It sounds so polite, almost trivial at first glance, but the source argues it is actually a highly effective spiritual weapon. It dismantles comparison, which is the oxygen of envy.
The oxygen of envy. I love that image. Fire needs oxygen to burn, and envy needs comparison to burn.
Exactly. If you cut off the oxygen, the fire goes out. Envy cannot survive in an atmosphere of genuine celebration. By saying, I am happy for now, you are stating out loud that your happiness is not competing with theirs. You are asserting that there is enough joy to go around in the universe. You are actively moving money from the realm of competition where, for me to win, you must lose to the realm of preference.
Right. It just becomes a preference. You prefer a 10-bedroom mansion. Cool. I genuinely hope you enjoy it. I prefer my 2-bedroom apartment. Also cool. There's no hierarchy anymore. Just difference.
It completely denies money the power to define status. It reclaims your own internal sovereignty. It breaks the link between having and being. It forces you to realize at a core level, I am not less simply because they have more.
But then comes what the author calls the test of teasing. Because sometimes the pressure isn't internal. We can conquer our own envy, but the pressure is external.
This is the peer pressure element, and it's tough. The source describes a scenario. Let's say you do the internal work. You successfully dethrone money. You choose family time over overtime. You decline a corrupt shortcut at work. You prioritize your health over the hustle. You step off the treadmill. You are actually happy.
And then the voices start.
Always.
You could be making so much more. You're just not ambitious enough anymore. Look what they have. Why don't you have that? Why aren't you scaling the business?
It is the societal narrative trying to pull you back into the rat race. Your friends, your family, your former colleagues, they might not understand it at all. They might think you've lost your edge or you've given up. And the source says the real test here is, can you remain unmoved by that?
Can you celebrate them without shrinking yourself?
That is the key phrase, without shrinking yourself. Often, when we are teased about not having enough money or not being successful enough by society standards, we feel small, we feel inadequate, we start to defensively justify our choices. Well, I'm working on this passion project and eventually...
Right, making excuses for being happy.
But if you have truly dethroned money, you don't feel small at all. You feel chosen. You actively chose your path. You chose peace over profit. You know exactly the value of what you bought with your time, and you don't need them to validate it.
The source says, if that teasing unsettles you, the chain is still there, simply thinner. That is a really tough standard to meet. It demands total independence from public opinion.
It does, but that is the actual price of freedom. If you still need their validation to feel good about your life, you are still playing their game, and their game is rigged.
Now, I want to pivot back to the context of the author again, because we're reading this warning across the ages, but we're reading it on a blog called Netizen, written by Paramendra Bhagat, and we need to look at the sidebar data to really understand where this message is coming from right now.
This is critical context for the listener. Paramendra Bhagat is not a monk living in the Himalayas. He is not a Luddite out there smashing server farms. He lists his books right there in the sidebar. Marketing Escape Velocity, The AI Marketing Revolution, Agentic AI, set to explode in 2026.
He also has novels mentioned like The Country of Geniuses and The Great Subcontinent Uprising. He's actively blogging about liquid computing and quantum computing.
He is a futurist.
Yeah.
He is obsessed with where technology is taking us. He mentions Elon Musk's vision and post-scarcity economics. He's thinking deeply about how we settle Mars and how we build general intelligence. He's watching the trade wars and the AOC 2028 chatter.
So the obvious question is, why is a guy who writes books about marketing escape velocity suddenly writing about the soul? Why is a guy predicting agentic AI explosions, quoting the Bible and the Puranas?
I think it is because he sees the trajectory we are on. He sees that in an age of abundance, which is a term he uses repeatedly, the foundational economic problem is technically solved.
Yeah.
If robots and AI can produce everything we physically need, if Gemini 3 and OpenClaw can handle all the manual and cognitive labor, the challenge stops being how do we survive
Yeah.
and immediately becomes how do we live?
Yeah, but connects to the book title of his in the sidebar, Kalkiism, the economic and spiritual blueprint for an age of abundance.
Yes, Kalkiism. It suggests he is looking for a grand synthesis. He believes that the spiritual shift, the Kalki element, referencing the final avatar in Hindu eschatology who ends the Kali Yuga, is intrinsically tied to the economic shift. You cannot just upgrade the economy to post-scarcity and leave the human soul running on Windows 95.
Or running on the Kali Yuga operating system of greed and exploitation.
Exactly. Think about it. If we have infinite power through AI, but we are still driven by the Kali vices, greed, exploitation, hoarding what actually happens, we will just use that infinite power to hoard more efficiently.
We'd just build a faster dystopia.
We would build a high-tech hellscape of abundance where a tiny fraction of people own absolutely everything and everyone else is miserable. So the warning here is actually a prerequisite for the abundance. You have to fix the software of the soul before you fully deploy the new hardware of the AI.
This leads perfectly into section 5 of the text, toward a different economy. The source talks about a moneyless future. Now, when I hear moneyless, my mind immediately goes to trading chickens for shoes, like going backward.
But again, we have to be careful with the definition here. The source clarifies that it is not barter in some primitive apocalyptic sense. He says it is value exchange decoupled from greed, accumulation, and status signaling. It's about removing the friction of mammon from the everyday exchange of human value.
He uses the mosquito analogy here, which I found really helpful to visualize this. He writes, the mosquito will be denied stagnant water.
It is a systemic approach to morality. Think about how you actually stop mosquitoes from taking over a town. You don't just run around swatting them one by one. You drain the stagnant water where they breed. The source equates the stagnant water to opacity, concentrated power, artificial scarcity, and fear in our current economic systems.
So the solution isn't just to swat the mosquitoes, meaning just punishing individual greedy people when they get caught. It is to drain the economic swamp entirely.
Right. The mosquito will be denied stagnant water. You design systems from the ground up for transparency. You design for service. If the system is fully transparent, corruption is incredibly hard to pull off. The water isn't stagnant, it's flowing and clear. If the system is truly abundant, hoarding becomes pointless. Why would you hoard buckets of water in your garage if you live right next to an endless clean river?
He points to signals of change that are already happening right now in 2026. Things like cooperative ownership models, open source collaboration.
And he connects this directly to the sidebar mentions like OpenClaw and OpenAI. These are technologies that, at least in theory, spread power out to the edges rather than concentrating it in the center. They democratize access to the means of production. If everyone on Earth has access to the best AI agent, the traditional monopoly dissolves.
He also mentions gift economies and social entrepreneurship as signals.
The ultimate goal, he writes, is the purification of motive. It is not the elimination of productivity. We are still going to build amazing things. We will still create art and tech. We will still go to space. But the why fundamentally changes. We stop building to extract value from others to win the zero-sum game, and we start building simply to add value to the whole.
This brings us to what he calls the free entrepreneur profile. Because I know we have a lot of people listening who run businesses, they have employees, they have overhead, and they're thinking, okay, this sounds nice in theory, but how do I actually operate on Monday morning? What does this person look like? The archetype of the business owner who has successfully beaten mammon.
The source describes them very vividly. Their joy comes entirely from service, not extraction. Money is treated purely as accounting, not identity. It's a tool sitting on the desk, not the king sitting on the throne.
It says this entrepreneur pays fairly, gives generously, and builds with integrity.
And the most important characteristic, the one that really struck me when reading this,
Yeah.
sleeps peacefully.
I keep coming back to that line too. It is such a simple, basic human necessity, but it is always the very first casualty of greed.
It really is the ultimate metric of success. You can have billions in a crypto wallet, you can have the best agentic AI tech stack in the world running your company, but if you are up at 3 a.m. checking the overseas markets, terrified of a 5% drop, terrified of Trump's default ruining your margins, terrified of what the competition is coding, you are poor, you are destitute, you are a slave. But the entrepreneur who builds with integrity, who treats their people well, who isn't clinging to every single dollar, they sleep. They actually have peace.
The source notes the irony of success here. It argues that this specific type of freedom actually attracts sustainable success.
Why is that? Because people fundamentally trust those who are not desperate. If you are desperate for my money, I can feel it in the pitch. I put my guard up immediately. I know you're trying to extract something from me to fill your own void. But if you are authentically serving me, if you are detached from the outcome because you already have your internal peace, I trust you.
Then trust is everything.
Trust is the only currency of the future. In a world of AI deepfakes and autonomous agents doing business, human trust is the only thing that actually matters.
So by not worshiping money, you might actually end up with more of it flowing through your business. And here is the real kicker. Even if you don't end up with more money, you still win.
Because you have the ultimate wealth, which the source defines very simply as bliss and joy. And the beautiful thing about this framework is that this wealth is accessible to everyone right now, today. It doesn't require a specific zip code. It doesn't require market dominance. It doesn't require a Gemini 3 subscription. It requires spiritual alignment.
It does not require market dominance. It requires spiritual alignment.
Yeah.
That is such a radical statement to find in a blog that is literally surrounded by links to the AI marketing revolution and guides on how to make money with AI tools.
It grounds the entire discussion perfectly. It reminds us that all this tech, all this incredible progress, all these new autonomous systems, they are just the stage. They aren't the play. The play is a condition of your soul. You can build the most advanced high-tech stage in the universe, but if the play being performed on it is a tragedy of greed and envy, it's still a tragedy.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive today, let's look at the final accounting. We have gone from the Gospel of Matthew to the cosmology of the Kali Yuga, all through the lens of a 2026 tech futurist, and landed on the practical idea of the free entrepreneur.
The core message is a profound convergence. Whether you read the Gospel of Matthew or you read the ancient stories of the Kali Yuga, the warning is exactly the same. Money is merely a tool that amplifies whatever is already in the human heart.
It can build hospitals, or it can fuel wars.
It can heal families or fracture them completely. The source leaves us with this. Do not let money sit where God belongs. Do not let numbers define your worth.
And in a world of agentic AI and velocity money, that throne in our hearts is under constant siege. The temptation to let the numbers rule is higher than it has ever been in human history because the numbers are getting bigger and faster than ever before.
Which is exactly why the resistance must be intentional. We have to actively practice that internal audit. We have to regularly practice the test of celebration we talked about.
So here is my challenge to you, the listener, and I'm going to try to do this too this week. Next time you feel that little twinge, that sudden spike of envy, when you see someone else's big win on social media, or you see a competitor absolutely crush a launch stop, just take a breath and try to say out loud with total sincerity, I am happy for you.
See what happens to the tension in your chest when you say it. See if you can actually break the chain.
Because, as the source ends, the highest wealth is not measured in currency. It is measured in peace.
And in a world that is getting noisier and faster by the literal second, peace might just be the most valuable asset class of all.
I love that. In a world of agentic AI, marketing escape velocity, and Gemini 3, perhaps the most disruptive technology of all is simply a heart that cannot be bought.
That really is the ultimate upgrade.
Thanks for diving in with us today. We'll catch you on the next one. Keep your treasure where it belongs.
Stay free.
See you next time.